Hey y'all, it's your girl Auda, and I'm back with another Auda Speaks. And in the last episode, we kind of discussed, following the plan, sticking to the plan and not going according to how you feel if it's not high energy or if you just don't feel like getting stuff done. And today's episode is going to be about, things hurting first before they feel good. And that's just in life. That's just with discipline. That's just with consistency. Like consistency, people try to make, it's not about being perfect when you're being consistent, but I feel like we don't understand how monumental consistency is. But it's just, it's so important to remember that when you're growing, when you're excelling, when you're moving over to new territory in life, it is going to feel it's going to feel like you're in a hot smoldering room and you just need to get out and whatever is the closest exit. Like it's so funny how the mind is. It's like you could be stepping into new territory and your mind just thinks it's something so huge and so big and so scary, and it's like, nah, we was not given the spirit of fear. So it's like, what is the holdup? What is the holdup? And there is a children's book by Dr. Seuss called Oh, the Places We'll Go. And there's like a college version of it. I believe there's like a small toddler kids version, and then there's a college kid version, right? And on that second version of that book, it says that a lot of people arrive at something called the waiting place. And this is a place where you just waiting for the right moment. You waiting for the right time. You waiting for the exact amount of money. You waiting for, the right people to come around. You waiting for the feeling like we was just talking about. Like you waiting for the feeling. And really, he said that you could get stuck there. He said a lot of people get stuck at the waiting place. And I feel like that was one of the most just insightful things in that entire book. Like it's a dope book in general, but like that is something that has always stuck with me, like since reading that, is to not get stuck in the waiting place of life. Sometimes we feel like we have to wait until we're actually ready for things. Like, yeah, like when I feel ready, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Or sometimes we feel like we have to look a certain way to start doing certain stuff. And it's like, no. Because those very times where you're sitting there, like, even me, to talk about it, this podcast, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait until I got like 10 in the can and then I'm going to start dropping them. It's like, no, because that's what you're using to try to get out of doing what you need to do. So it's like, if you're one of those people right now, somebody needed to hear this because it's being said, who you feel like you got to have X amount of dollars in the can or X amount of videos if you're a content person, or X amount of whatever in the can, X amount of time of doing something in the can before you actually launch or before you actually get in motion. You're lying to yourself. You're gaslighting yourself. You're self-sabotaging. You're talking yourself out of it. And you don't want to do that, That's the waiting place. So I think the biggest thing, too, is just remembering that this stuff is not going to feel good, A lot of times when you're working out, it's like when you lifting heavier weights and you trying to go up on your weights, you going to feel like you about to pass out. You going to feel like you about to go up out of here. Trying to, just go up higher in life or go up higher in what you're trying to do. But understanding that, yes, pace yourself, but you are capable of great things. So it's like, you can't let yourself get stuck on it hurts. Or even me, like, I just feel like a lot of revelations in me lately has just been about like, hey, like, yeah, you're going to have to change and it's not going to feel the funnest. And it's like, dang, sometimes we get stuck on how much we need to change, how far we are from the point we want to be at and where we're at the moment. But it's those very things that's going to really help you to be like, you know what, I do need to get in motion. I do need to do more than I think instead of thinking more than I do. And it's going to hurt. You're going to cry. That's what it feels like sometimes, like you just suffering and you trying to suffer through it to where it gets to the good part where it feels good. And you hear a lot of people say, hey, like, enjoy the journey, like it's going to be straight. Just enjoy the journey. And again, I think I talked about this in the last episode. It's like, that's been one of the hardest parts for me, because I'm always just on to looking at the next season. But you have to honor the season that you're in. That's something very powerful that we all could just remember, is honoring whatever season that you're in, because that is something that is important when you are talking about it hurting before it feels good. It's just honoring the season that you're in and accepting, like, hey, this is where I'm at. I do need to make changes. I do need to grow. I do need to fix this part of me. I do need to stop saying this is how I am. Like, because some people get stuck in that too. Like, this is how I am. This is how I always been. Does that not mean that you can't change? Does that not mean that you can't pivot? And so it's about reflection. I was talking about this a while ago, just saying how, some of us, we grew up and we felt like, me personally, I felt like this, like we felt like rules and structure and discipline was restriction. Like, we felt like we was in a pigeonhole. Like, we felt like, structure and rules and time management, we felt like that was jail. But it's like, as you grow up and you see the people who was okay with that, the people who was okay with time, structure, and discipline, those, and consistency, to talk about it, those are the people who are far along in life. Not in the sense of just, of course, the physical things, but more so in the sense of mentally, because that's a big part of these things that we're talking about, is your mental space. When your mental is refined enough to say, hey, this is what I need to do to get to where I want to be, whether I feel like it or not, that's when everything changes, And some of us are serial confirmation receivers. Like, we feel like we need confirmation upon confirmation to move on things and to do things and all of that. But sometimes that's the part that's holding you back. Because a lot of times, and I can attest to this in my own life, a lot of times if you go ahead and just jump off the porch and, of course it has to be, again, I'm going to always say it got to be fruitful. But, a lot of times if you just jump off the porch and go ahead and do what you're thinking about, if it's not right, God going to direct the path. If it's for you, you're going to know. But you're not going to know if you don't jump off the porch. So, and sometimes that's where that Stoop kid comes in. If you watch Tay Arnold, like, I love Tay Arnold. That Stoop kid, he did not want to lead a stoop. When Arnold helped him, he took the smallest step off that stoop, and it was like, he felt like he was going into battlefield, into war, when he stepped just off that last ledge of the stoop. And it was nothing like he imagined, Yes, it probably hurt him because of fear. A lot of times this feeling of it's going to hurt before it feels good is just a lot of fear. Fear can feel really painful. However, a lot of times the fear is never as big as we imagine it to be. And so it just goes back to that Stoop kid. He was in his comfort zone. He didn't want to move. He didn't want to jump off the porch, literally. And that held him back for so long until he just went to another. He was out there, but he went to another stoop. It's like, you don't want to keep going into places where it's like you get stuck, you get complacent, you get comfortable because you feel like it's going to hurt, and the fear hurts and everything hurts. But it's like everything do low key hurt until you just get to the part where it's like you're used to it, and then it's good. It's just like losing weight. It's like, learning new skills, going to school, whatever it is. It's almost like it's going to be a little bit of suffer with it, because that's what this world has come to, with just the way that the adversary is. But it's like, when you get to the good part, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I jumped off the porch. So it's going to hurt before it feels good. But, you hear often everybody says we got to choose our hard, and that's real. We have to choose our hard. And sometimes the things that you wanted to do, and I'm going to make this a whole separate one, but a lot of times the things that you didn't want to do the most is what's going to set you up forever. So this has been another Auda Speaks episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow the Spotify, and I will see y'all in the next one.